Bodie Show. Living on the water is the only life we know. Yo, ho, ho, ho. It's time for the Bodie Show.
It's time for the Bodie Show.
It's time.
It's time. Hello, Stephanie.
Hello, Jeff.
We have had ourselves some times in the last week.
That is true.
Yes. You visited an island.
I did. I was in Brooklyn. I was in Manhattan. I was in the city again since the last time we were there. And you also visited an island.
I was in Iceland all last week. And last week's show was recorded within the first few hours of me arriving in Iceland. And then I spent the rest of the week there.
So what did you see?
I saw a place and a people that I did not want to leave. It's the first time I've traveled abroad where I didn't have any instinct to go home. I wasn't like, oh, I want to sleep in my own bed, or oh, I want to see my dogs, or oh, I want to go back to my house, or oh, any of that. I was like, this place is me and I am it, and I want to stay here.
Do you think you can articulate why?
Everything's harder.
Oh, God. Thanks for saving me the airfare.
And I've been thinking about that the whole time. Like, Stephanie would hate it here. Everything is harder.
But, like, give me an example.
Well, maybe that's more historically. Everything's harder because, like, until not that long ago, it was a real hard place to live. Like, basically, the country wasn't fully like launched into the modern world until World War II, and it sprinted to catch up and in some ways surpass. The island is being formed by volcanic action as we speak. It's brand new. It wasn't part of a continent. There is a rift between two intercontinental plates that were like going along minding their own business. This rift was going along minding its own business, and then it went over top of a giant magma spike. And I learned that magma spikes are fixed. They emanate from the Earth's core in one spot and one spot only. And the rift between these plates went over the magma spike, and blammo, Iceland.
It got stuck?
No, like the magma spike shot up between the two plates and caused all sorts of new land to form. And that's happening right now. And there's the rift is like down the middle of the country. That's where most of the volcanic action is. And, there's been 4 eruptions in the last 6 months. We saw like just new island after new island. It was great. And,
amazing.
Everything is new. Like the culture's new. And also very, very old.
Well, when you say so how old is it?
So it was settled, between like 874 and 950 or so, permanently settled. So people found it. Some of them went home. Bunch came back, and a lot of the settlement was driven by Denmark and various people being like, I'm out of Denmark, but but still maintained ties to Denmark. And there's a golden age of effectively independence when a whole bunch of chieftains left Denmark. And these are people who could have stayed, but they were like, there was this king of Denmark who consolidated, basically rolled up all of the independent chieftains into a unified kingdom. He took over them all, probably in some like straight up gangster, outlaw ways, because that's how things happened back then.
A pretty good guess.
Yeah. There were a bunch of chieftains who were like, you know what, I don't like this. I'm going to take my considerable wealth, intelligence, resources, experience, and people and leave. And a number of them ended up, finding Iceland and settling there. They formed a democracy almost right away. As soon as there were, a few thousand people on the island, they were all living independently, and they decided that they needed to get together once a year and make laws that would allow them to resolve disputes and deal with people who'd been criminal. And I spoke about this rift. So the rift shoots down the middle of the country, and in one part of the rift there are 2 big cliffs creating like an amphitheater next to a lake and a river and a grassy plain. And so they started gathering there every summer around the solstice and used this as an amphitheater where all the people on the island would get together, or at least like representatives of all the people on the island would get together. And there was a law rock where like it's a raised area sort of at the end of this rift, which again formed by the volcanic action, the plate spreading apart. And you stand on top of this and you can basically, your voice will carry all the way up, and all the people,
cool.
All the people would gather in this open, this natural amphitheater, and they had somebody named the law speaker whose job was to memorize all the laws and speak them every year. And they like
that.
They decide how they're all going to live together. And, if somebody stole some sheep at some point during the year, they'd figure out like, all right, well, what's his restitution? And if he didn't do it, then, or if he did like something repeatedly or did something really bad, they'd like kick him out of society, and then he could be hunted.
Oh.
Yeah, so like it wasn't all like this was not hippie rules. This was not hippie rules democracy.
I mean, yes and no.
But they called
voting on things, which is probably better than what's happening in Denmark. But
yeah, they were voting.
Voting on hunting people is okay. I'm just gonna.
I think you had to do like some really bad stuff to get kicked out, and then you're out, quote unquote, outside the law, and it was fair to like go after you, which typically happened because like the person you'd wronged would then be like, all right, you're done, and then and he and his buddies would go after the. But
I'm guessing, as interesting as this is not what made you want to live there forever, or is it?
No. So this annual assembly was called The Thing.
Wait, what?
The Thing. Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
Really?
Yeah, they were like, yeah, we get together and it's a thing we do.
It's like I named it.
And yeah, that's one other reason I was thinking about it. Like I was like, man, Steph would love it here because and when you all get together, it's called the All Thingy.
Shut up.
Swear to God. It's called the All Thingy, and the place where they get together is called the Thingvalier, like Thing Valley.
I can't.
So I was like, Steph would hate it here, but she would also love it.
That's amazing.
It's called the All Thingy.
That is. Thank you for sharing that. That's
so
amazing.
Part of why I didn't want to leave was because there is a history of independence and collective action. That means there's a culture of that, and I like that. Like Icelanders pull together big time. When things go sideways, they pull together. And
until then, you're expected to just do your own thing, take care of yourself.
Yeah, deal with your stuff. They have a word, tatararist. It basically means like, okay, we're not going to worry about things until they happen, and then we're going to deal with them. It's like, hey, we'll figure it out when it happens. Like we'll deal with it when it happens. And we had a wonderful guide, Dorothea, who is German, but she made her home in Iceland. She's been there for like 20 plus years. And she said that she loves it because she goes back to Germany and people are like stressed about stuff that may or may not happen. Like, wow, real tight about what may or may not happen. And then in Iceland, people are like, you know what? This island could explode at any time. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to do what I need to do. Like people very much in the present. And just as an example of like how they pull together and how they're resilient, there was a massive financial crisis for the whole country in 2008 when the global recession happened. Short story, there were some really loose regulations around banks and investing, and the whole country had like basically a lot of the country businesses had made big bets overseas. And when the global recession happened, those bets went south, and so tons and tons of bankruptcies. The rates of mental illness and suicide went down because everybody were like, oh shit, this is bad. Let's pull together and figure out how to deal with it. And there was a lot of that. They did. So when I met people, I was taken by like, yeah, we'll figure it out, and yeah, we'll pull together. And the All Thingy in the Thingvalier doesn't happen in the Thingvalier anymore. But it still happens. There's a parliament and a number of parties that form coalition governments, and they really work to the benefit of Iceland. Some of this is because they were basically trade monopolies from the Danish. There were 3 families or something like that were the only ones in Denmark allowed to trade with Iceland. And so it wasn't like everybody from around the world came to Iceland to buy fish because that was the biggest export. It was like these 3 families locked it all down, and they bought all the fish and they set all the prices until World War II. You know, like a generation or two ago, like 1940 was when they basically, Denmark got taken over by the Germans. And in 1940, the Icelanders were like, all right, well, we're not going to be ruled by Denmark anymore because they've been taken over by the Germans. And they had a treaty which was like mutually renewable or non-renewable. And so they let it expire in 1943. And then after that, they were independent. And then they were able to trade without being held under a monopoly by the Danish. And they did. And they figured out that commercial fishing, and they figured this out during World War II because all the fishing fleets in Europe were either taken by the Germans or, the fishing boats were confiscated for the war effort, and except for Iceland's. And so they were like, all right, well, we got a decent fleet, and they started exporting fish, and they recognized that they could build this industry it's not nationalized, it's privately owned, but it's very much managed nationally because it brings in like billions in foreign currency reserves that the country then continues to reinvest in infrastructure. So like they're like, all right, we're on this godforsaken island, as Thurston said when we were talking to him last week. We've got to like make sure we can educate our people, have roads, power. They're energy independent, 100% renewable, 80% hydro, 20% geothermal, and they're working to increase the geothermal. So they only import fuel for vehicles, and they've got a high rate of electric vehicle electrification because they'll eventually basically need almost no hydrocarbons from outside the country. And it's just, it was really neat. Plus, boy, I'm kind of monologuing, but should I stop?
Nope.
No? Okay. Plus, it's just naturally gorgeous, like incredible landscape and geology everywhere you look. No trees. Well, there are trees, but none of them are like taller than me, really. A forest in Iceland is like 6 feet tall because it's so hard for anything to grow there.
Yeah. It's like the key deer.
Yeah, right. They're little, right, for a reason. I could go on about the natural setting, but like I think I really vibed with the culture and the values of the place. Real open. Like women got the right to vote in 1920, which was earlier than women got the right to vote in the States.
Interesting.
Yeah, like real early on, female leaders. Plenty of keeping people down happened, but like also examples of it opening up pretty quickly. It is a really remarkable place. Everything's new. Everything is new.
Obviously, the fishing is a big deal.
Yeah. So, do you remember when Thurston was very adamant about how the Rafnar 1100 is very safe?
Yeah, people die fishing there all the time.
So he was sort of over and over again talking about how safe the boat is, and that's because fishing was the last resort for food production because it's so unsafe. So it was a subsistence agrarian society, and for the longest time, and really people would only fish when they ran out of everything else to eat, or they needed to export so that they could have hard currency or trade goods to import stuff.
Okay, so the fishing is sketchy, and yet that's most of what they do, and the boat is really safe. That makes sense.
Yeah, so it just put learning more as I went through the country about how many people died from a very small country with a very small population. Like in the census of 1803, there were barely over 50,000 people, and that's after being almost 50,000 people in 1703, but dip into like barely 30,000 because of a whole bunch of eruptions and plagues and starvation that happened. So like not a lot of people, and so you lose some people from your village fishing. It's a big deal. So anyway, as I went through, like we went to this really neat rural museum, sort of all about Iceland, that was established by a native Icelander who just loved it and was an amateur historian. But they had these series of memorial plaques on the wall, which looked like something you would expect from a war memorial. And I took a picture of the plaque, and it was really moving because it was just this long list of names, and it was in Icelandic, so I couldn't really read, but here's the description of the sort of this memorial plaque exhibit. To men lost at sea along the sandy south coast of Iceland, boats had to be built flat bottomed for launching and beaching on flat sandy beaches, and this meant that they were not designed for heavy seas. In rough seas, it took great skill to keep them afloat. Fishermen had no weather forecasts to guide them and had to rely on their own observations, experience, and traditions. In rough weather, fish oil was sometimes poured on the sea to calm the waves. If this did not work, boats had to make for home or take refuge in the sheltered harbor of the Westman Islands. There's really no harbor on most of the coast of the country, especially the south coast, which is where all the fish are because the Gulf Stream comes up and basically runs into Iceland, and like there's a collision of like nutrients and temperatures that fish love. This description was next to memorial plaques to fishermen and women from the Rangavalasisla district, 1901 to 1952, lost at sea near the Westman Islands. The plaque on the right commemorates the loss of 27 lives on the boat Björgulfur in one accident in the year 1901. Only one survived. So this was that was one of a whole bunch of plaques. And when we went to the actual Maritime Museum, there were a bunch of other memorials that called all this stuff out. And it, in the United States, like these kinds of memorials tend to be for the Civil War or World War I or World War II. And so there were stories about the safety. So like February 1912, 60 children left fatherless when the gear was lost in a storm. February 1920, fishing vessel Valtyr from Reykjavik lost with all hands. 1922, Never Leave port on a Monday. The Talisman runs aground. Line throwing gun saves 24 men.
It's like cargo cards, but worse.
Yeah. 1933, trawler Olafur RE7 from Reykjavik is lost with 21 men. 1941, adrift for 10 days. The steamship. Oh, this is the other thing. Adrift for 10 days. The steamship Hekla is sunk by a German U-boat. So you remember Thurston just talked about an Icelandic boat or an Icelandic ship being sunk by the U-boat. So the German U-boats hunted the Icelandic fishing fleet because they knew that the fish was going to Europe to feed soldiers. So they'd go out there to fish in these crazy conditions, and then they'd also get shot at by U-boats. I was just very taken with like how much people sacrificed, how much these villages, these families sacrificed in order to fish when at a minimum they didn't have any other food because they didn't go fishing unless they had to, or they needed money to buy things, medicine, anything made out of metal because there are no mineral reserves on the island. So they would fish to export, even with these Danish monopolies, but then continue to fish in order to actually build roads and hospitals. And Thurston, he said that. He's like, yeah, we have this fishing fleet. It was 60% of our economy. Now it's 45. Tourism's like spiked in the last 10 years. But he said, yes, we need to earn foreign currency so we can build hospitals and schools and roads. And there's some serious bootstrapping that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've gone on about it, but just to have a through line and how big of a deal it is. So originally the territorial fishing boundaries of Iceland were claimed to be 4 miles. Then they pushed it to 12. Then they pushed it to 50 and then to 200. And every time they pushed it, it was because foreign fleets were coming and basically catching the fish out from underneath the Icelanders and undermining the market. So like if they fished within 4 or 12 miles, but an English or German ship was fishing 50 miles out and catching twice as many fish because they had actual steamships and the Icelanders just had sailing vessels at the time, that meant that the UK and German boats were basically depressing the price of what the Icelanders were catching for export because they were just catching what they would have imported otherwise. So there was in the 50s, 60s, and 70s there were a series of what are described as cod wars, so cod the fish. And in the 70s, the Icelandic government pushed the fishing boundary out to 200 miles, and the British and German fishing fleets that would come would bring naval vessels with them that would ram the Icelandic Coast Guard boats that were trying to chase the foreign fleets out. And so we saw in this museum that they figured out how to create this grappling hook with a bunch of knives on it, and this magnificent Coast Guard vessel called the Odin, which is mostly famous for saving like people off of 130 ships that had foundered, countless hundreds, maybe thousands of lives. But this boat would tow this grappling hook with knives on it across the trawl lines of the fishing vessels and cut them. And, also fire warning shots across the bow of the like warships that had come with the UK and German boats. And they were resilient and like went at it enough to the point where the British and Germans were like, okay, we give up, and left, right? This is a country with no standing armed forces, none. Like they don't have soldiers. But this is what it meant to the country in 1974, 30 years out from World War II, to actually, they sort of did this on their own in order to grow their economy so that they could have hospitals and schools and roads and all of these things and sort of make it into the modern era. And just as a through line, there was an advertisement in the airport for a company called Kerecis, which has figured out that fish skin doesn't carry any viruses that infect humans. And so they have a fishing fleet that catches cod and handles it in a very specific way so that they can take the skin off of the cod, which is then grafted onto burn victims. It doesn't have to be washed with a whole bunch of antibiotics and antivirals, which means that it preserves a lot of the healthy characteristics like the fatty acids and the structure, because it doesn't have to be treated so that you don't get infected by like bovine virus blah, which happens when you get a graft from pig skin. So like they've innovated and are using fish skin from their fishing fleet to save people's lives with, and it's really, apparently it's really good for wound healing. They keep innovating on this, the only natural resource that they have besides the natural beauty of the place, which they're selling to like 2.5 million tourists a year. And I could go on and on and on. Clearly, I really liked Iceland. Thank you for listening. listening. Steph and I, so listeners, thank you for listening to that. Steph and I haven't really talked about Iceland since we got back, other than like a couple of things. We were kind of saving it for the podcast. Plus Steph was really busy having a wonderful weekend on her own island.
Bottom line is we haven't talked in a long time, so there's a lot to process.
Yeah, there's a lot to process.
There's a lot to process. This is a great description, though. I love it. And I feel like it's, obviously it was super boaty in its way, and it's an island, and it sounds amazing. And I'm also glad you came home.
Thank you. I mean, boaty in its way, but like nobody really wants to go out in the ocean because it kills everybody. And
I'm kind of like, I'm thinking about that. Like, I'm sort of like, definitely puts a new spin on the boat we talked about last week.
Yeah,
right? Like,
it really does. And why it's self-righting and why it's so safe.
Yeah. I'm jealous you got to go out in that. It was really good. It seemed super cool.
We're gonna go out in it together at some point, or a boat like it at some point. I'm gonna try and learn about the collaboration they have with Disruptor Marine in Virginia, and maybe we could go down there and visit. Yeah, Bob.
That's on the way to something.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you want to tell us about the conveyor belt?
Oh, right. So it's a rigid hull inflatable. So there's an inflatable tube around the perimeter of the whole boat, and they need to put basically non-skid / protective material on this where people are going to step. And they bought like the normal product for that from whatever, whoever sells it. And there was like, it came off right away under the kind of usage that they were putting it in. So there was a fish processing plant next to the Rafnar boatyard, and they went over there and they were looking at the conveyor belts, which are used to unload fish. And they were like, hey, all right, let's try this. And so they got that and they glued the conveyor belt material to the inflatable tube, and like it works perfectly and it hasn't failed yet on the boat. The first boat they built in 2015, first production style boat they built in 2015. So pushing 10 years of hard use, and they put it on all the boats that they build. Yeah. Which is fun because our friend Anna has a whaler called Moby, and old whalers have notoriously bad or like easily cracked and ripped off, what do you call it? Rub rails. Basically the sort of little bumper around the perimeter of the boat. And Steph, would you tell us what Anna's dad Ken put on as a rub rail on Moby the whaler?
This is a quiz because I got it wrong before. Escalator railing?
Escalator handrail. Yeah.
That's some tough stuff right there compared to a regular rub rail on a whale.
So
right?
Conveyor belt non-skid on the tubes of the Rafnar boats, and escalator handrail as rub rail on Moby the whaler.
Yeah, clearly those things are related. Yeah.
Are you sleepy?
No.
Oh, okay. You just listened to me drone on about Iceland for a long time. So.
Like, maybe we should make this a special Iceland episode.
Maybe. I think it's that. Yeah. No, we got it. We can talk about our stuff. I'll probably say this like 7 times. But one last thing about Iceland. Yeah. So here's
7 last things.
Like, they just call things and the thingy, and they're all thingy. So you'd love it.
I would love it.
It's never hot, right?
That's nice. I like never hot.
Yeah. But it's also like everything's harder. So at the museum where they had the memorial plaques, they also had a fish hammer. So stockfish, which are dried whitefish, dried cod or halibut, they're air dried, so they get really, really hard. And in order to eat the fish that you dried so that you would have something to eat in the winter, you have
to hit it with a hammer?
You need to beat it with a big stone mallet.
In order to get fish powder?
In order to just like get it to be at all tenderized, and like you couldn't even soak it to make it soft again.
But I'm saying, after you hit it with a hammer, don't you do something else to it before you eat it?
Please
say yes. Hard hammered fish does not.
I'm sure you put it in some soup or something, but if you're,
I'd like to know. There's like another step.
There weren't any recipes. The fish hammer in the exhibit did not also include the recipe for what you did with the fish, other than you beat it with a hammer.
Okay, I see where you're going with this, and you're right.
So imagine instead
if I had to beat my food with a hammer before eating it, I would consider that life being more difficult. And no, thank you.
That's my point.
Like maybe you're going to burn as many calories as you're going to be accumulating anyway. I don't understand.
That's why I think once you're done beating the fish with a hammer so you can eat it, you probably just eat it because you're so hungry because you had to beat it with a hammer.
Yeah. Also, it sounds awful.
Everything's harder in Iceland.
Especially the fish.
Bada boom.
Oh, God. Thank you for that descriptive postcard. And
they had a fish hammer. They had to beat their fish with a hammer made of stone to eat it. And it was not a small hammer. It's not a small hammer.
Meals. I mean, I did have an overly hard bialy for lunch today.
Which you cut your finger slicing it because it was.
I did. I cut my finger slicing. If I'd had a hammer, maybe I just would have beaten the bialy. But I didn't. So I sliced my finger open with a 2-day-old Bialy, and
See?
happy Rosh
You
Hashanah.
need
I don't know what
you need a Bialy hammer, a Bialy beater
I think
to tenderize it.
there are so many things that I need, and I I did not know that a food hammer was one of them.
Well, there's a nice one in Iceland.
I can't believe
next
you didn't.
time,
That would have been a great gift to bring me back.
here, Stephanie. Here, next time you're like bummed about this minor inconvenience in your life, you can feel
Like,
better
there's
that
no
you.
snakes dropping from the trees, and also I don't need a food hammer. And also, no one in the house has lice, because that's my go-to. That's how I can feel grateful anytime, any day of the week, no matter how shitty things get. I can just be like, no one has lice. So
did our kids give each other lice?
Your kids give my kids, but who's keeping track?
God, that was bad.
I'm sure my kids gave your kids lice too at some point.
That was bad. Oh man, dealing with lice.
But remember how awful it was? Remember lice?
Yeah, you can't half-ass it. That's the thing. You can't half-ass lice removal.
Maybe we needed a lice hammer.
I guess you could probably use your fish hammer for the lice too. Except you got to get the lights off.
Hold on. Sometimes there's like an alarm that needs to go off when we're going down a particularly dark corridor.
It's true.
Stop.
Yes.
Stop now.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, that was great. I feel like we should go to Boat of the Week now, because if we don't go now, it may never happen.
Yeah. Okay. What were some of the other topics besides Boat of the Week?
Well, we did have a very nice listener question that maybe we could talk about.
No, I want to actually, before we go to Boat of the Week, I laid down like over 30 minutes of a postcard from Iceland. Stephanie, tell us about your weekend, please.
I feel like this is where we should go to Boat of the Week.
No, I want to hear about your weekend. You went to Brooklyn. That's vague. Did you ride a boat while you were in Brooklyn?
I did. I took the foot ferry, which is what I'm calling it. I don't think that's what it's called, but you know what I'm talking about, right? We talked about it before.
The foot ferry.
You just walk on the ferry and it takes you a bunch of different places. It's like the subway, but on the water.
Yeah. I think the proper name is pedestrian ferry, but I will never think of it that way again. It's the foot ferry.
It's the foot ferry, right? But the problem was that I made some poor fashion choices, some poor footwear choices on the way, because I get excited when I leave the North Country and go to the city. And I was like, look at these lovely vintage men's wingtips that I have, and I'm going to wear these and it'll be so fun. And then I had to run for the foot ferry, which obviously I should have known that would happen. So Julie and I ran. We had to run, which, first of all, it's been at least 17 years since I ran anywhere.
I've never actually seen you run. We've known each other for 20 years, and I've never seen you run. I'm going through my Rolodex of memories.
You can just put it on your list of things to make your life Anyway,
so you ran for the foot ferry.
We ran. We were going to miss the ferry, and that would have meant missing the very important event we were going to. But then, so we ran.
Which you told me about before we got on the podcast tonight. We really need to have a Patreon so people can subscribe to the stuff that we don't record, because you were going to an event that was over the top hilarious.
No, this was Jeff.
Oh, sorry.
This was the first night I was there. I was going to a very respectable fundraiser for the Barred Prison Initiative.
Oh, it was the Barred Prison Initiative turned 25.
Exactly. It was completely above board.
Okay.
And very respectable and inspiring in every way.
Then what am I laughing about? That was where you went the second night?
And yes.
Okay.
And then, but anyway, so I had to run for the foot ferry. And then the problem is, and this is where I'm going a little sideways. So everyone understands what happened. Obviously, I wore the shoes that were vintage. Bad choice. I ran for the ferry. And then for the rest of the weekend, I had so many enormous blisters on my feet that I was completely almost like non-functional. Like I couldn't walk.
Country Mouse.
Right, exactly. It was
Country Mouse problems.
Every time I go to the city, I forget that I have to wear sensible footwear so that I don't have this problem. And every time I mess it up and wear something that is like funky or cute or interesting in some way that I don't know. And then there was a lot of
Did you make the ferry?
We made the ferry.
Okay.
We made the ferry. We walked up on top. It was getting dark, beautiful, very delightful. But then it became clear that I had a problem already. So I took off my shoes, sat down. I actually used the only adhesive that I had on me at the time, which was a whole bunch of Bodhi Show stickers. And a waiter's knife, which I used to slice them in half and use them as very optimistic Band-Aids on my feet to try to like get myself through the night.
I got a text from Steph of her using Bodhi Show stickers as Band-Aids with no explanation.
And I'd only been in the city for like 2.5 hours. Things had already gone so wrong.
I'm like literally meditating next to a glacier, and I get a text of you doing Bodhi Show first aid with Bodhi Show stickers.
We were on very different wavelengths.
But I'm so happy that you used a Bodhi Show sticker to cover up blisters that you got while running to catch a ferry.
Yeah,
that's
a nice Bodhi component to it.
Some Bodhi shit.
An amazing woman was at the table near us, but it's New York City because people are near you, but they're not near you. It's not like the North Country where, if you're next to somebody, you're automatically probably related. But it was more like she was sitting at the table, but we pretend to ignore each other because it's New York City and that's how you do. And then she saw the desperation regarding like the waiter's knife and the Bodhi Show stickers being applied, in the inside of the shoes. And she was like, "Would you like some Band-Aids?" And I was like, "Wow, this lady just like gave us Band-Aids on a boat, like out of nowhere." I was like, "This is amazing." And then she was like our fairy godmother, and then we were like, she's like the fairy, and she was amazing. So hats off to you, whoever you are. Thank you for that.
The fairy. This is your mixed connection.
Really delivered on Bodhi Band-Aids. But suffice it to say, the rest of the weekend I had flat tires. Like I just couldn't utilize the bottom portion of my body.
So you were hobbling around, but you still went dancing.
I did a lot of barefoot New York City activity, which is probably not advised.
That's some country mouse shit right there.
I was like, I'm sorry, I can't wear shoes. I hope there are needles. I don't know. But it was great. We had a great time.
You did not step in any needles that you know of.
No, I think honestly, I feel like I would like to compliment somebody in New York City on the cleanliness of their street. I managed to safely navigate New York City barefoot for 2 days, and I feel like that's a real testament to somebody besides me.
definitely besides you. That's fantastic. Great. I love one of my favorite things is at a wedding when all the women like take the dumb shoes they've been forced to wear off to dance. Mm-hmm. And so you just like went large on that and made it all of Manhattan. And Brooklyn.
Yep. But I did run to the walking ferry. The walking ferry was amazing. We went a couple of stops. It was dark by the time we got somewhere. It was really beautiful to be on the water there.
Do you know which river you went up? Did you go up the...
I don't really know where I am most of the time. Sorry. I don't know where I was.
You could use that as a segue to the listener question, which is, you guys talk about navigating around shoals all the time, but like nobody else has to deal with shoals. Oh, yeah. What's that all about?
Question. So, the listener question.
Stephanie, how do you navigate around shoals?
That's a good question. And I would say that you know this about me, that when I'm on the river, I do know where I am. But when I'm not on the river, I don't. And I'm kind of enjoying not knowing where I am. I'm like, I don't know. And I don't have to. It's kind of delightful. But also, but it's a good question. Who gave us the listener question again?
Keith.
From whence did it come?
Keith. So thank you for your listener question. How do you navigate around shoals?
Yeah, no, you're right. We talk about shoals, and that's not the most obvious thing. But here, first of all, as people have heard us say, the river is very large. It's not a small river. It's a huge river. There's islands all over. And then in between those, there's chunks of rock that's not chunks, but there's formations of rock that come up to the surface, and you can hit them very easily with your boat at any time, right? So you have to know where you are. And the question of how you navigate around shoals is a great question, and that has a bunch of different answers. The original, like my immediate answer is like, you know where to go. You don't always know where the shoals are, but you know where they're not. So the first thing you do is you learn where you can go.
Yes.
And then especially before GPS, right? You just know you've got lines from point A to point B, and you know those are the safe places to go. But then GPS changed everything, because then you got to know where the shoals actually were, and that opened up so many more places to go. That's my experience. What about you?
Same. Yeah. So we started with paper charts. You only had like one focal plane, like you weren't zooming in or zooming out.
Wait, that's a good point. Nobody taught you where to go on the river.
Who, me?
Yeah, because you didn't grow up here.
No, yeah, nobody taught me.
So you showed up here, and then you had to figure out where to go from chart.
Wait, somebody taught you where to go?
Yeah, that's how it works, is that your parents yell at you a lot when you're young. And yeah, that's how you learn, is people just tell you where you can go. You can go here, you can go from here to here. And you're like, okay, and do that. And then next you meet somebody who wants to go to the bar, and you learn you can go from there to there, and you do that. And then you meet, somebody who's hot, and you can learn that now you can go from there to there. And then,
Wait.
but that's it. You just learn where you can go. Right?
So if they're hot enough, you'll figure out how to go there?
I mean, it could be any level of hot, but I'm just saying.
No. You can't just say and blow past that.
But you see what I'm saying? Maybe you need groceries. Maybe you need a hot boyfriend. Maybe you need whatever it is. You figure out where to go, and then you're like, now I know a new place I can go. But
What if you meet somebody who's not really your type?
then somebody else can figure out how to get to their house. You don't care. You don't have to add that to the database. But maybe you need Canadian beer. I don't know. Whatever it is you need. You figure out some trajectory of how to get there, and then you add that to the database. But you just learn lines, right? Someone tells you where you can go. But then I realized you came here when you were in your 20s, 30s? 30s?
Yeah. And I'd already met and I'd already met somebody who was hot. I was married.
Yeah, exactly.
I was married to her. She's the hot admin. So I didn't like. But the point I was out of luck because like I wasn't going to meet anybody else that was hot.
Well, you still needed groceries. Good, lucky for
That's
you.
True.
And you had natural curiosity.
I take your point though. There's almost like an oral tradition of you can go between these 2 points and you line up your bow and your stern and you go between those 2 points, or you can go between these 2 islands because that's safe. And so these lines that you're learning to get from here to there almost become like a roadmap, like a road atlas.
Yeah. Or even more, not so much an atlas, but a roadway. They're roadways. Like those are your options. And then it just becomes how many more options you can add. But what you did is better because you showed up here and you actively used, you like looked for where you could go. And we used paper charts if we had to, for sure. Like if we had to get somewhere and we couldn't figure it out, we used paper charts.
Really?
Yeah. But a lot of it was just that you had been doing, I'd been doing it when you showed up here, I'd been 15 years. I'd already been just doing the lines that people told me to do.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I had never thought about it that way.
And sometimes we would follow boats all the time, which is a great way to learn where you can go.
Yeah.
Just follow somebody that has a deeper draw than yours and just.
Well, the way I learned it was I stared at the chart a lot and was like, I want to go to that place that looks interesting, or I want to go to that place that looks interesting. Yeah. And then I would go there. I would navigate by the chart so I grew up sailing on the Chesapeake Bay, where like that's how you got around. You looked at the charts and you figured out where you were, and you went like all the places where you could go based on the chart. I never really thought about the oral tradition, but it makes sense because there are people still who are like, I don't need a GPS. I know the river. And those are the people who know the lines. They know the routes.
That's right.
And they limit themselves. And if you're listening to this, you limit yourself with these lines. You just like go this place or that place. You go to the places that you know already. You should get some paper. You should get a GPS, because when you go from paper charts to GPS, now you see where the shoals are and you just go around them, which means you go.
It's true. And I'm going to self-identify as one of those people that I held that line for several years, that like, it's just such a classic perspective of like, oh, we don't need that sort of thing around here. You know what I mean? Like GPSs were around, and I was clinging to the whole, like, if you really know the river, you don't need that, but it's total bullshit. I was totally wrong. And it's just better. Like, just like you're saying, there's so much river. It's such a waste in some ways to only stick to what you know, because makes the shoals a lot smaller if you have a GPS.
Yeah, there aren't that many shoals. Like when you don't know where any shoals are, it's like you're in the middle of a minefield. Yeah. And you have no idea.
But back to the listener question too, is like what I think maybe visually, if Keith can picture this, like, so you heard option A is do whatever your people when you were growing up told you to do. Option B is get a GPS and find the shoals. And there are moments where you're looking at your GPS and you just see like this, like it looks like freaking Milky Way.
Lots of
little stars, right? That are shoals. And then you have to, it's like there are places where there's a ton of shoals and you just kind of zoom in and figure out where you can go and not go. But most of the places you can go, you just have to stay away from the stars.
Yeah. The stars. So the shoals are marked by an asterisk or like a if they're bigger, like a depth change. So like if you've got a GPS which shows deep water in white and shallower water in darkening shades of blue as you get shallower and shallower, you just stay in the white, or you just stay in the white or the light blue, or whatever your level of comfort is. You definitely avoid the asterisks because those are mark of rock that's like in the middle of nowhere where there's it's basically a spike sticking up.
And the other thing I think that's interesting that people will recognize, not just from boating but from all manner of different cognitive learning experiences, is that the idea, like the looking up and knowing where you are because you've done it 100 times, and the looking down and learning something and trying to integrate that into the looking up, are two very different skill sets. Both are very, very useful, especially when sort of put together. Right?
Yeah. Since I had no oral tradition, I figured it out with paper charts and then GPS. And I have had many conversations where people are like, "Oh, what'd you do today?" I'm like, "Oh, I went to, the backside of Grandview on the other side of Needle." And they're like, "Wow, really? Wow, you go all over there." I'm like, "Well, why don't you?" It's because they have that tradition of going from point A to point B via the safe line that they know and that they learned from their parents or their grandparents.
Yes. And also something we've talked about before, at least you and I have talked about, I don't know about on the show, but there is something about all of this that makes the river often a smaller backyard than what you would have, than what people would normally have in terms of how much land they would cover. The combination of water, weather, and knowing where you are gives you a smaller backyard sometimes, which, although it's great to go everywhere, sometimes it's really nice to have plenty of exploration in a smaller place. I think that's one of the things about the Thousand Islands that people love.
So if you go from the foot of Wolf Island to Chippewa Bay, that's maybe 25 miles.
Yeah.
And
which is tiny.
I've spent close to 20 years exploring just that.
Right.
And boating all the damn time. I think the other thing is I got a lot of really good paper charts and used them, and people didn't necessarily have those. And then I got a good GPS and used it, and people didn't necessarily have that. So like, because I didn't have the oral tradition, I had to do something, which was, get these navigational aids and figure it out that way, which is different. Not saying that I'm a better boater or anything like that. I just had a very different introduction to the area.
No, it's really interesting because you and I have never talked about this before, but it is really interesting to think about how you get into that. So it's a great question. I don't know. It's a really interesting dichotomy between just doing what you know and getting to learn more. And part of that is technology, that GPS technology halfway through our lives. It's a game changer.
I never really thought about it this way, but I was well prepared for the river because sailing in the Chesapeake all over Eastern Shore, Western Shore, all up and down, down to the Potomac and up to friggin' almost to Pennsylvania. The Chesapeake doesn't have rock shoals, but it has mud shoals, and those move around and shift, and also you can go different places depending on what the tide's doing, and
right.
You're constantly making sure you go where you want to go, or you explore these new areas, but you don't quote unquote run aground. And in a sailboat, you've got a deep keel. So a sailboat could draw 5 feet, 4 feet, 7 feet, 8 feet. So running aground is a big deal. You could get stuck basically in mud. And I have these memories of as a kid, like my dad yelling at us to run from port to starboard and back over and over in order to like get the boat rocking so you could break the keel loose from the mud that we'd run into. And so there was
sounds like fun.
And this is pre-GPS era. So there was a lot of like, where are we? What's on the paper chart? Looking up and looking down, looking at the chart, figuring out where we are. Is that point this point on the chart? Does that mean that we're in a deep enough area, or are we about to run aground? Oh, we just ran aground. And we talked about we would talk about like exploring rivers, and there's a term in the Chesapeake called gunk holing. So you could like get way, way up these tidal rivers into what people called a gunk hole. It's more appetizing than it sounds.
It would be impossible for it not to be.
Gunk holing is like exploring these tidal rivers, and my mom called it navigating by braille, where you just go real slow until you ran into something, then you'd like,
I love that.
You'd go the other way.
I say that a lot when people are like, yeah, I hit a rock. I'm like, you're just using the braille method. It's fine.
Yeah.
Gunk holing sounds like what I was doing with my bare feet in New York City as well. So full circle on that one. Like, let's jump to boat of the week. Okay. We got work to do. Okay.
It's the boat of the week, stable asleep. Check out that vessel, baby, isn't she sweet? It's the boat of the week, boat of the week. Ooh, how I love me, the boat of the week.
Oh, those sweet, sweet sounds.
Sweet, sweet tones.
We didn't get to listen to it last week because it was all Iceland, all Thorsten. Sorry.
Yeah, we missed it. Where shall we begin?
You tell me.
Well, I think first in line, chronologically, is Jen Cohen O'Neill with the electric retrofit. Novel, there's something, is that French? What is that? Nova Yachts.
Okay.
Have you got it?
Nope. I'm pulling it.
It appears to be a solar-powered, enormous catamaran yacht, and also maybe a sailboat on the page, but I don't know that that's what we're looking at. I think we're looking at the yacht.
The Nova Lux. Yes, it is a catamaran, and so in the Caribbean there.
But it's a catamaran boat, not sailboat.
Yes,
or is it both?
It is a catamaran sailboat.
Sailboat. Okay.
No, I'm sorry. It is a catamaran powerboat.
Powerboat.
Nova Lux builds hybrid electric catamarans with an unlimited range and a top speed that excites. Our electric
They didn't tell us what the top speed is, though.
No, but it excites.
I feel like they kind of sidestepped that, but that's okay.
Can you keep reading? This is under where it says autonomy and solar.
I'd like to. Autonomy and solar. Oh, is it on this menu?
Just it's not like on the main page. I scrolled down. I'll keep reading.
Yeah, I don't have it.
Our electric light ships, E-Light, range from 39 to 110 feet. Our sailing yachts are high performance. So I guess they make a sailboat too. We also work with traditional manufacturers to deliver new electric yachts to discerning customers. We refit used power catamarans to be electric and have developed the 25 kilowatt electric refit for monohulls between 25 and 40 feet. This is cool. Mm-hmm. So they build hybrid electric catamarans. So hybrid electric meaning there's probably a diesel motor and an electric motor. They also have a power system that they'll put into used catamarans.
Is there a motor called a Torpedo? Because that makes me happy.
Torpedo is if not the first, then one of the first modern electric outboard manufacturers. It's a European company.
God bless them for having a great name. I think from an exterior perspective, there's nothing I hate about it at all.
You don't hate it?
No, I like it. I love
okay.
It. I mean, it's not a 1972 Glastron, but it's cool looking. I like it. I kind of like the roofy thing, so that it's a little sun deck situation, and that's covered with the solar panels.
There's a big hardtop over the. So there's a style of boat. These power catamarans, they're huge in the Caribbean for rental fleets, or in the Virgin Islands for rental fleets.
Okay.
Like you go down there, like there are these two big hulls spanned by a big deck, big bridge deck, and the hulls typically have like at least a bedroom each, often 2 bedrooms, 2 baths each. So there's like 4 staterooms, 2 in each of the hulls. Ton of living space. They're super wide. And then there's a flybridge, like a big steering and chilling spot up top. And these have a huge hard top over the top of that flybridge that's covered in solar panels.
And like from the side, like it doesn't have any of those goony, weird looking windows. Like the window the way they've handled the window situation is good. There's a cleanliness to the exterior of this that I like.
Yeah.
I'm kind of into this range unlimited. So here's what they came up with for a marketing, like little jingle: travel anywhere for any amount of time luxuriously.
I'm down with that.
I know. I feel like that's a nice choice of words. I like it.
Infinite luxurious travel. Okay, thank you, Jen.
What's next?
The Nova Lux. All right, next is Scott Smith, who submitted what he is calling his 2-boat Starmada.
Oh, it's already charming.
These are the 2 Starcraft Americans I rebuilt in the early 2000s. Blue is a 1974 15-footer, and red is a 1976 18-footer. Both got full deck-off rebuilds with new transoms, stringers, and soles. You might need your soles to be rebuilt.
Sorry.
Blue, after your weekend in Brooklyn, Manhattan. Okay. Blue got off the shelf West Marine seats, while red got more of a restoration with rebuilt and reupholstered seats, full upholstered trim, etc. For smaller boats, they have decent V-hull that rides nicely in moderate chop. Hull was designed by Waltman B. Walters, noted marine architect.
Also has a great name.
So there looks like blue is an outboard and red is
an IO.
Is an IO with like some sort of cool. No. It's an outboard also. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say probably. I would think.
Given that it's Scott Smith, and he loves all things two-stroke.
Two-stroke and outboard.
Yes. Yeah. So these are Starcraft Americans.
so awesome. I love them both. Blue is really charming me right now. Just so adorable. Just a nice vintage. I love the white on top and then a black stripe beneath that, and then just a beautiful blue hull.
Yeah.
And it's adorable.
Yeah. And it's a simple layout, Merc outboard in the back, couple of seats, and aluminum framed wraparound windshield. It's not open bow, so like just a nice little speedboat. That's the 15-footer. And then the red is bigger, similar design, but it's got like some cool like at the back, at the aft end of the cockpit, there's like a little bump up in the deck that gives it sort of like some structure toward the stern. I don't think it's functional at all, but just some more going on in the design. These are really pretty restored 70s outboard power. Outboard power runabouts.
I also love the story of it. Just the fact that a lot of people restore blah blah fancy blah blah, but I love the care put into these. Just like great boats for kids, great boats for families, great boats for the river. Well done.
Well done, Scott. Thank you for that submission. So you pick the next one. I think it's Gabe.
Gabe. Well, this one fills me with joy. Can I read the whole thing?
Yes.
Okay. It says, here's another little hottie for your consideration. This is more in the range of, quote, I wonder if I could actually buy this one for the collection, unquote, versus some of the super yachts that just won't happen in this or any future lifetime that I will inhabit. Hinckley Yacht Brokerage on it. Oh, so let me finish. That was Gabe's intro, and then he's got a video of the boat, which is a Hinckley. And then he finishes by saying, I even love the name Ougie Bougie. But what really caught me were two moments. First, how she glides at low speed. Such beautiful low lines. And second, that wraparound bench behind the swivel seats. I mean, Blake and Patrick can argue against all manner of bucket seats. But I don't think you'll find a sweeter cockpit in a small boat than this one. The cherry on top is that it's got boarding step. I just think that Gabe should get a job writing for a boating magazine.
Gabe, your copy, my man. It's good.
It's so good. I mean, someone hire that guy. All right. And then we did play. Can you play it so people can hear the music?
Yes. So there's a video of this thing.
Immediately I said this. Immediately, it just sounds like a little bit of a porn soundtrack to me, which obviously makes it better.
So there's this music is playing over a video of this, like, just pimped out luxury runabout from Hinckley.
29 feet, and it's called Ougie Bougie.
It's a special one-owner T29 runabout. She has many custom features, including built-in boarding steps, ski tow pole, recent chart plotter, and so you'd be able to find the shoals, and custom hull, cockpit colors, etc. She has always been maintained by Hinckley in heated indoor storage. She conveys with a silver-certified pre-owned warranty.
What does that even mean? What? I don't even know what that means. I've never had a boat with a warranty, so I think that means, that's why I don't.
Given this music that's playing, I think that means like she got tested and she's clean.
Oh God Almighty! All right, play it up, Jeff, if you can.
I'm playing it. I've been playing it this whole time I've been talking.
Oh really? It's going on in the background. I just can't hear it.
No.
All right, that fills me with joy. It is really great.
Yeah, it's fine. Okay.
Hold on. Now I'm just
last but not least.
Hold on. Scary things happening here. Okay, ready.
Last but not least, Patrick Murphy, after a long hiatus, back in the game.
Back in the game. Let's see it. Oh. Ooh.
2005.
Yep.
2000.
Limestone Cuddy.
Yep.
24 feet. Cuddy cabin, 2005. Engine hours, we don't care about that. Total power, 311 horsepower, whatever. Description. The most magnificent 1989 29.4 limestone ever. That is some superlative language. Beacon was refit in 2005 by one of the famous Palm Beach, Florida boatyards. The boat was repowered 2005's Yanmar diesel engine package matched with a Bravo 2 blah, 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 whatever.
No, this is important. It's matched to a Bravo 3 stern drive. So that's a dual prop, which is awesome because it gets the boat up and makes it go and lifts it and launches it. Those Bravo 3s are great. Diesel
engine package matched with a Bravo 3 stern drive. How do you know there's two? You just know?
No, two props. The Bravo 3 has two propellers on it.
Okay, that's what the Bravo 3 has two. Okay. A new stern drive was recently installed. The Bosun Museum piece bow thruster, period. The original owner spent upwards of 700 refitting, but was customized. It says, okay, hang on. Beautifully crafted aft bench seat. We like that. Custom helm seat with aft facing flip down bench, custom teak decking throughout, instrument panel customized with new gauges, hideaway feature operated electrically. Her helm features a highly polished stainless Edison steering wheel, the speed knob, and a panish.
Why did you pause when you said speed knob?
And a panish control shift and throttle assembly. I don't know what that is. What's a panish control shift?
I have no idea.
Shifter?
Yeah.
Beacon is a real head turner in any part of the world. All right.
But Steph, why'd you pause when you said speed knob?
I would.
You're not taking the bait. That's fine.
It's much more interesting than your out. It's just all. It's like a wooden limestone. I didn't even know these things existed.
So somebody took a limestone and made it into a gorgeous picnic boat. They put all sorts of.
Oh, is that what happened?
Yeah.
Do you think that they put wood like all over the outside of the fiberglass?
Yep. Like all that.
So there's like a fiberglass boat encased in wood. It sounds like a
no.
Meat.
The wood is all trim. So there's trim that's been applied, wood, like beautiful wood trim that's been applied like along the rub rail, the sort of top of the shear line, the deck above the rub rail. There's beautiful wood trim. The windshield was ripped off and replaced with a wood framed windshield. Yeah. Split in the middle, which I like.
But the sides are still fiberglass.
Yeah, the rest of the boat's still fiberglass. And then it sounds like they spent a lot of money doing, applying, like basically retrofitting a teak deck. Like limestones don't come with teak decks, but it has a teak deck.
And the stern.
Yeah, and they put a veneer wooden transom on the outside of the fiberglass.
Yep.
And they built
There's a lot of. Basically, what I liked about it immediately was that it looks like a wooden boat, that a shape of which I've never seen before.
Yeah.
Which is because it's not a wooden boat. But I like that about it. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. The shape is recognizable to me. The whole shape is recognizable to me as a limestone, the 24.
As a limestone, right. But
limestone.
it was surprising to see it be so woody.
Yeah. Tons of trim, like wood deck applied to the top of the fiberglass deck. All the furniture inside is wood. There's a cockpit liner that's wood. The dash is wood. The gauge cluster is surrounded by wood.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it is really pretty.
It's really pretty.
This is a labor of love for somebody. Okay.
So how do we compare that with, the only thing I remember about Gabe's was the copy. I don't remember the boat itself. So.
And then it's called Oogie Bougie.
It's called Oogie Bougie. How would you compare these two boats? They're not completely dissimilar. This one's is not woodish, right? The Hinckley is just.
There's just enough wood on the Hinckley for it to like give people that impression, but there's not the kind of commitment to wood furniture and wood trim and a wood deck and a wood windshield that the Beacon has, this limestone. But they are both very much in the style of the picnic boat, which is super beautiful and fancy and nice. You take your picnic, you take your wine and cheese, you go out, you do some cruising around, you have a picnic. You don't go fishing.
Well, I don't know how to decide between those two things, except I feel like I really like the limestone a lot. I feel like
clearly
you've
already forgotten the other boats that were submitted.
What do you mean? I didn't forget them.
You didn't? Oh, okay.
No, I like those too. I'm just saying I really like the limestone. It's like a labor of love, like you said.
Yeah.
It's like it shows it's a one of a kind.
Yeah.
And I like Gabe's copy. So can we just give Gabe, he wins the copy award.
Fine.
Great. Yay!
Gabe, you win the Copy Boat of the Week award.
Keep it up.
Keep it up. The hot admin will send you a sticker. Patrick, I think you're on your way to winning. Well, so these are all powered. These boats are all powered, right? So now we're comparing the Starmada, Scott Smith's two submissions, the hybrid electric catamaran, and then these two sort of picnic boats, the limestone labor of love and the Oogie Bougie boat with a, like, what was it called? The warranty. I got to get that. She conveys with a silver certified pre-owned warranty. She's clean. She's tested clean.
I'm going to let you sort out the rest of the decision making.
What?
Yeah.
No.
I already made my call. I called my two favorites.
Okay, so you were saying that the other two boats were not contenders.
Well, they are contenders. I just think personally, I would go with the one of a kind and then Gabe for the copy.
I am very taken with the Starmada, the 2 Starcraft. I mean,
Understandable position.
that's a labor of love, right? There's no money to be made in restoring 1974 or 1976.
I'm sorry. Is there money to be made elsewhere in this situation? 'Cause
No.
I'm not seeing it.
There's less money
to be spent.
There's more money to be lost in restoring those Starcrafts.
That's more accurate.
There's a higher volume of money to be lost in restoring those Starcrafts, and it's not about the money. So I'll be straight up honest. Like these 2, blue hull, white stripe, blah 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 picnic boat. I'm bored. I'm bored with them. I'm bored with the picnic boats. I'm bored. So I'm not going to agree that either of those is the boat of the week. They're gorgeous. Patrick, I think that the limestone is like that as far as a picnic boat with a flag blue hull, like that's a contender because somebody made that out of a 24-foot limestone and it's gorgeous. And if you had a boathouse, you would probably buy that and put it in it. But I'm still bored by it. I won't be bored when I'm driving around it and when you finally buy it, but that'll be awesome. But like right now in the context of boat of the week, I'm bored by it.
So harsh.
So for me,
Anyway,
the contenders are the Starmada, the 2 Starcraft Americas, and the electric catamaran, John. And of those, I appreciate the electric catamaran, but it doesn't make me go fluttery. And the Starcrafts do. The 2 Starcrafts, I look at those and I'm like, ooh, yeah.
Well, you can't pick both of them anyway.
Well, all right. I'll pick one of those 2.
I love that this is going to be a fight to the death. Okay, go.
Yeah. Tell me what's distinctive at all about those 2 picnic boats.
What do you mean what's distinctive? It's literally one of a kind.
Yeah, but you take a step back from it and it just looks like every other boat.
Well, to me, it makes me fluttery.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. And that can't be quantified. There's nothing objective about the fluttery reaction.
Yeah, I love that limestone hull. I love this. I'm going to use words that aren't the right words, but I love the way that it flares out from the waterline like so much.
Yeah.
And like most wooden boats don't do that. So that to me, I think it's super cool. Like I love seeing a limestone that looks like it's coming across like a wooden boat. Like I thought was I'm super into it.
All right. I got that. And then I love those Starcraft because they're very colorful. While one is blue.
I love those too. Don't get me wrong. If you want to pick Starmada, I will even say they both win because they have one name, which counts as one boat. I'm down. I love those boats too.
You want to pick those over Patrick's?
I am so flexible. I love all boats.
Yeah.
I love this. I love the 70s. I love the blue. I love the whole thing.
Okay.
There's a kid standing on the dock next to the boats. I mean, it's a winner.
Yeah. And they were restored as a labor of love. All right. Well, I feel like I have used my fish hammer to beat you into submission. I've tenderized you with the fish hammer into agreeing that the Starmada was the boat of the week. Ladies and gentlemen, the Starmada boat of the week.
It's the boat of the week, stable and sleek. Check out that vessel, baby, isn't she sweet?
I played a little extra music because there were 2 boats.
Oh, well, that was just a delightful day. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That was a nice show. And thank you for listening
we
to
didn't
my...
talk about the babysitter.
Oh, float of the week.
I mean, let's just do this. Let's, as quickly as possible, explain what it is, which is a way to leave your children in the water without being supervised. It was sent to us by Anna Larson. Apparently, she and her brother Carl survived childhood through the utilization of what is literally called the babysitter. We'll put a picture on the Instagram because it's amazing.
It's
amazing.
Really, and Anna points out that there are no safety warnings at all on the box that it's in. None.
Yeah. I mean, it just doesn't get any better than that. I think I'm glad we remembered to just close the show with that particular moment of incredibleness.
If you're a child of 80s, it's one of those like weird fabric colored, foam, and there's a hole in the middle of it in the saddle, and you drop your baby in that, and you
just like float it out to sea. Apparently, give it a hammer and say good luck.
You can go about your business while the babysitter keeps your child afloat. You can't hear him because you're out.
Seriously,
cruising
I mean,
around.
So I know that this is an audio format, but there's some things you have to see. So if you're not, this is like a reason like to go get Instagram if you don't have it because it's the best thing
oh my
I've
god,
ever seen in my
it'll
life.
be on the pictures will be on Instagram and Facebook at the Bodhi Show. So Anna, that wins float of the week. So
could you give her some applause for that, please? I mean,
Yeah.
When you're right, you're right.
When you're right, you're
so
right.
good. All right.
Okay, this is a
Delightful.
really
I'm so
nice
glad
show.
to see you again. It's
So
been
glad to see
long.
you. Yeah, it was good to catch up, and thank you for bearing with my Iceland monologue at the beginning. You, Stephanie, thank you, and listeners.
I'm just so glad you're back.
Thank you as well. I don't know, man. If I go over there again, I might not come back. You can come visit.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's it. It was great to catch up. I missed you, and listeners, thank you so much for listening.
Stay floaty.
Yo ho ho, that's it for the Bodie Show. Pack the cooler, grab the lines, let's go, go, go. Yo ho 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 ho.
That's it for the Bodie Show.
Have a good week.